You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome into On Deck. I'm Tyler Redmond. As always, thank you so much for checking out the channel. I do appreciate you, and I appreciate you staying with us. Now, let's go ahead and just jump right back into this. Let's talk about the Braves versus the Mets, shall we? Without a doubt, the worst we have seen the Braves play, I think, all year. The first time they have lost 3 in a row, and it, of course, goes to the division rival and first place New York Mets. 4 losses to the Mets at a terrible time in August, and now 6.5 games back in the division in the NL East. Nothing I say is going to make that taste better. It's got a bad taste. But you can try to blame different things. You can blame it on the umpires. C.P. Buckner had a bad game. We're all aware of it. You can blame it on odd hits. You can blame it on injuries. Whatever you want to do. But at the end of the day, the Mets were the better team. You cannot tell me that you didn't watch those games and feel like the Braves were outmatched. Because they were. I hate to say it, but they were. They were overwhelmed at the plate. And frankly, they were overwhelmed on the mound too. All the way around, the Braves got beat. And they know it. So what makes it so hard to beat the Mets? Right? We've talked about this pretty extensively, why the Braves haven't played well. It's a pretty similar combination. It's not like they had a key homer that just broke the back of the Braves. I mean, they continually, consistently beat them up at the plate. And they do a lot of things that the Braves don't do offensively right now. At the plate, the Mets battle. And that's the key word. They battle. They lead the league in the most foul balls. And you know what? Long at-bats like that stretch a pitching staff thin, hence why the Braves are struggling on both sides of the ball. But they put the ball in play, too, and that's key here. We talked a lot this past week about blown saves and strikeouts. I did a whole video on it. Go check it out. But the key thing here is strikeouts. This is the biggest problem for the Braves, without a doubt, is strikeouts. They are leading the league in strikeouts. Before this last couple of games, they were at 983. I'm sure they broke 1,000 because along with blown saves, the Braves and strikeouts go together. They go hand in hand. The Mets, on the other hand, second best in strikeouts in the National League. So you got two pretty complete opposite teams, and somehow or another they're both competing for the division. In fact, if you look at the series game by game, the one game that the Braves won versus Taijuan Walker, game 2, that is the only game that the Mets had more strikeouts in. And I'm not saying that strikeouts lead to losses, but I don't think it takes a genius to figure out that it's a common trend. 57 strikeouts over this 5-game span with the New York Mets. If you put that together, that is 2 full games of strikeouts plus some. So 2 out of 5 games, the Braves struck out. And you can say what you want about the Mets' weak contact and luck, but putting the ball in play is the only way to get consistent offense. And the Mets have been able to do that against the Braves. They've been able to do that all year long, and it's a huge part of their success, especially offensively. Again, you can say it's luck. I've heard that all week long, that it's lucky hits here and there. But that's more than what the Braves are doing. They're not making contact. They're striking out. So if you don't believe me, go look at the post-game interviews of Spencer Strider, Max Fried, the starting pitchers of the Braves, Ian Anderson. They're going to tell you how hard it is to face the New York Mets lineup because they have long at-bats. They are hard to strike out, and that is a key thing here. And on the pitching side of things, from their perspective, from Ian Anderson, Max Fried, from their perspective, battling for long at-bats like the Mets are able to do, make pitchers not only not be able to strike you out, but they make them not be able to have quality starts. You can't go 6 innings if you threw 40 pitches in the first 2, right? So that's why that's why the Mets have been successful, and that's why the Braves are craving length right now because think about it. What was the last time Ian Anderson went 6 or 7 innings, right? And they're craving that length in the back end of the rotation. And that's why they traded for Jake Odorizzi, in my opinion. That's why when they did send Ian Anderson down to the minors, that's why they went and brought up Huascar Ynoa. It's not because Huascar Ynoa was lighting things up in AAA. I hate to break it to you. His 5 ERA was not, that's not going to translate to a 3 or less ERA in the majors. It's just not. Now, if I'm wrong, then by all means, let Waskar finish the year. That move was so Ian Anderson could get right for the back half of the season. Hopefully that happens, but that, the jury is still out on that. But again, they are craving length. The Braves need length. That being said, for right now, they also have to change offensively. They've got to put runs on the board. In my opinion, that all starts with battling at the plate. And we have seen some improvements in the Braves lineup. Eddie has been phenomenal as of late. Acuna is breaking out again. He's finally getting out of that slump. And he has been battling some soreness. I know he was out of the lineup yesterday, but he is breaking out overall in the past couple of weeks. But those two, Eddie and Ronald Acuna, have made conscious efforts to change their swing, to change their approach at the plate, to change something. For Eddie, it was pretty involuntary. It's that he can see now, right? But he does look overall more comfortable in the box, even since he's returned. But for Acuna, there has been a different approach. You've seen him battle more at the plate. The one guy, and I don't like to do this, I really don't like to call guys out, but the one guy that I haven't seen make any changes is Marcell Ozuna. And the book is out on him, guys. He can't hit low and away. He's got a very violent swing, and he can't get, the outer part of the plate. So if you're a starting pitcher, what are you going to throw? I'm going to throw 3 sliders low and away and let him swing over the top of it. He might take a few, but that's the book on Ozuna, and it happens so much now that his average is about a 220 average and 19 homers, which doesn't look bad on paper, but in clutch situations, what is he able to do? So I look at that, and I just wish that he would make a slight mechanical change, a slight, mindset change at the plate. I think it'd be a game changer. And you know what? Marcell Ozuna himself can be a game changer. His violent swing can be deadly for another team, but if he can't touch off speed low and away, what good is it? So again, his bat has the potential to change a season. We saw it in 2020 across 60 games. We have 52 games left in the regular season this year. And you know what? Again, he could be a game changer. With the loss of Adam Duvall, he might have to be. And I look at Marcell Ozuna, and I need, a power bat, but I need, more importantly, a consistent bat. And that is the key to success. So touching back just real quick to bring it all together for the Braves and Mets series. I know it was a weird series. We saw odd hits here and there. We saw injuries. We saw bad calls by the umpire, whatever you want to think. It was a very odd series. But it was also very indicative of how these teams play, because for the Mets, they have long at-bats. They have really good starting pitching. They have Edwin Diaz in the pen, and he was pretty well rested coming into this series. For the Braves, you don't have that. You have, not great at-bats, followed up by an occasional offensive burst. We saw that in Game 2 versus Taijuan Walker. But, it was very indicative of how they've played all year for both teams. And for the Mets, when you play like that, you're going to win ball games. They were able to win 4 against the Braves. So, we just saw the Mets at their best. I mean, we really did. Those were the Mets at their best. But I don't think the Mets have seen the Braves at their best. And they have an opportunity to right that wrong. Coming up this week, the Braves play the Mets four games at Truist Park. So if they can win in Atlanta, if they can perform in Atlanta and get some of those games back, which I believe they can, then the Braves could set themselves up for success. They can make a run in September. But right now, 6.5 games back, you have to realize the Mets games, yes, they are pivotal. They are pivotal. They are important. But at this point, 6.5 games back, every game is important. I don't care if it's the Red Sox. I don't care if it's the Marlins, the Pirates, the Astros. Every game is important. I look at this calendar and I look at August 2nd versus the Phillies. We've already played this game. We've already lost this game. But it was a game that we could have easily won. And we didn't. And we had a lead late and we gave it up. 3 runs in 1 inning. That cannot happen. Blown saves cannot happen. 19 strikeout games cannot happen. That was Game 5 yesterday. That cannot happen if you want to continue to compete. Something's got to give, guys, and I'm looking at this, this lineup issue, this offensive issue, just this chemistry issue, and I'm a little concerned. I'm not going to lie to you. I think this is a very good team. I think they can make a run at a postseason. They're well in the wild card race right now, But that being said, if you want to set yourself up for, a profitable postseason, I look at it and I look at October right now, and I think you got to win the division. Now, I'm not saying the Braves can't do that, but it's looking pretty bleak. They've got to perform. Next week is a very, very pivotal series. But I look at that and something's got to give. Now, I'm curious if the Braves attack this series with the Red Sox different, because if I look at one series on this calendar where you got to try something new, it's the series with the last place Red Sox. And not a knock on the Red Sox, but if I got a guy I want to try out, if I got a mechanical thing I want to try out, or if I have a lineup shift I want to make, it's going to be against the Red Sox. I think you got to try something. You got to make something shake. And if I'm Brian Snicker, I'm looking at that lineup and I'm thinking of every possibility I could do to fix things, to get something going. And you know what? If Rosario, Acuna, and Ozuna have a great 52 games to end this year, the Braves could make one of the greatest runs, in recent memory. But that's got to happen if they're going to do it. So that's where I think the NL East stands. That's where my opinions are on this past series. It was a series that was hard to watch. I'll be honest with you. I gave up my Saturday. I was great. It's a doubleheader versus the Braves and Mets. This is going to be great. I don't care if they split it, but I get to watch Braves baseball all day long. And look, I watched both games all the way through, and it was tough to watch. But that being said, I just hope the rest of the year is not tough to watch. And for that to happen, the Braves bats have got to come alive. They've got to be more consistent. They got to have longer at bats. To tell you the truth, they got to get some lessons from the Mets. And they got to start playing like that. They got to stretch Scherzer thin. They got to stretch DeGrom thin. And those are two very great pitchers. But at the same time, Max Fried and Kyle Wright have been performing all year long. The Braves lineup has got to perform, and the Braves bullpen has got to perform. And I'll be honest with you, I wish I could say that Dean Anderson has performed, but he's headed down to Gwinnett here soon. So, I look at that, and I just think that the Braves have got to do something. But until then, it's going to be rough. So let's hear what you guys want to say. I'm here in the chat. I know Jonathan dropped a super chat. I appreciate that, buddy. Thank you. A lot of you guys are being active tonight. I know there's a lot of anger in the chat after this past week. I know the Braves are going to come together, but for right now, it's going to be a little bit rough. But if you will do me a favor before we get going in this, before we get to going in the chat, do me a favor. Hit the bell for notifications. That is a great thing you can do. But also subscribe. And, of course, like the video. I cannot enforce that enough. Just like the video. I don't need to explain it to you. It helps me out a ton, and it would do me a lot of good. So do me a favor and like the video. Get it out there to Braves Country. We'll have a better conversation for it if you do. Also, if you want to follow me on social media, those are the tags. Thank you guys for sticking with me. I know we had some technical difficulties. Sorry about that. The weather, what are you going to do? The internet and the weather, they do not coincide. So I appreciate that, guys, and appreciate you guys tuning in. And, of course, liking the video. Let's see what you guys got to say. Yusuke Knight tunes in. He says, Braves got to get back at it tomorrow, plain and simple. Yeah, again, they are playing the Boston Red Sox tomorrow. I think we're going to see a better team. I think we're going to see a more focused team because, I listened to a lot of those post-game interviews, and every single one of them is, we got to play better. Dansby, he's like, I don't want to call it a wake-up call, but I don't know a better word for it. It's a wake-up call. This was a reality check. We've been hearing that the Mets are good this year. I think being Braves fans, we all assume that, they'll probably tank at some point because that's what they did last year. That's what they seemingly do every year. This ain't that year. They have a good pitching staff. DeGrom came back at a good time, but they were performing well without DeGrom. And it's because their offense up and down has those guys that can be consistent and set it up for guys like Pete Alonso. And you can talk again about the luck hits, but, you put the ball in play, something happens, and that's the game. So they got to get back at it, and hopefully they have a better rest of the season than what they've had this past week. Orion Griswold says, I keep seeing Braves hitters lay off close pitches with 2 strikes, which is why we keep getting rung up by bad umpires. Look, I saw a lot of calls made by C.B. Buckner the other day. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's upsetting. It's definitely upsetting when you get called looking, and then you get called looking on, a pitch that wasn't even across the plate. Yeah, that gets old. 2 strikes is too close for taking there, so I get what you're saying. I don't know what the fix to that is other than swing the bat, be more aggressive. But, I've been talking a lot about battling. It's a lot to ask for somebody to battle and then when they see a pitch they don't like on 2 strikes that happens to be just a hair out of the zone, and then it gets called a strike, it's hard for me to really condemn that because I'm literally here talking about have longer at bats. I'd rather them try to battle than to swing and miss at 3 pitches that are out of the zone. So yeah, with 2 strikes, there's a different mindset. I get it, especially with a bad umpire. But it's been tough to watch. Matthew Brittingham is in here, and he says, "Hey Tyler, is it just me or is Iglesias a bad use of Braves payroll? We have to pay him over $14.5 million through 2025. That money could be better spent on a position player or starting pitcher in the future." Any other time, I would agree with you. But with the pitching like it is, and frankly with the payroll like it is, I don't think it's much of a concern because the Braves are going to be a contender for a long time. They're going to have the attendance. They're going to have more money. And to be honest with you, they're expecting it, right? They know more about the money situation than me and you both do. But, I also look for a comparison. I look at Kenley Jansen, who, arguably has had a better career, sure. But, same quality arm. And, we're paying him $18 million this year. So I don't think it's too bad. And yeah, it could be used on a position player, but you got a guy for multiple years who's got a very lively arm, and I think it was a good pickup. We've been talking about him a lot since the trade deadline. I like it. I thought he looked great the other night. And yeah, you can talk about he's getting paid too much, but at the deadline it got close, and we needed bullpen help. AA made something work. I hate that we traded Tucker Davidson. I was looking forward to seeing him in a Major League Braves uniform for good at one day. But, the Braves had their mind made up, and we got Raisel Iglesias. I think it was a good pickup for the pen, and, hopefully those will continue to come in. Let me see. Blake says the Mets payroll is also $93 million higher than us. That's a good 4 or 5 key players. Liberty Media is going to have to keep foot with Cohen. All right, guys, let's just remember, you got to re-sign Max Fried if you want him, and you could be competing with the Dodgers on that. You've already re-signed Riley. You could potentially extend Albies to a higher paying deal if you wanted to. You're going to want to lock up Michael Harris at one point. I don't know. They're going to have some money to spend, not to mention Swanson at the end of the year. So you can harp on the Liberty Media, but they know that they're going to have to pay these guys if they want to keep them. So we'll see. But when it comes to money, I don't typically condemn the Braves for spending money, primarily because AA is the general manager, and I know that's an easy out. But I look at that and I go, well, this guy knows what he's doing, right? This isn't the Phillies, where I question everything they do. This is Alex Anthopoulos and the Atlanta Braves. So, I look at that and I say, well, they know, if you can get a deal somewhere, it doesn't mean you're going to get a deal everywhere, right? Like I look at Ozzy Albies, who we got a great deal on, $35 million for 6-7 years. And then I look at, Kenley Jansen, $18 million for 1. And yeah, it's like, we're paying this guy, $18 million to be a bullpen arm. We're paying our second baseman, 35 over 7. That doesn't make any sense. But then, it's like, well, if we can get a deal on Ozzy because he's younger, and we can get Kenley in because he's older, and it all balances out. The key here is they have a budget. They're going to work within it. And I think that Alex Anthopoulos has done well under Liberty Media's, jurisdiction and, frankly, budget. To do what he's done. I mean, he won a World Series under the Liberty Media budget. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. In terms of the Mets payroll, it's always going to be higher. And it just is. Because, frankly, it's in a bigger market. They're not the Yankees, but they are in New York. So it does make a difference. Josh Hutchins says strikeouts and rollover groundouts. There's a lot of them, and again, I don't know what the fix is other than having better at bats, and that is for Seitzer to figure out, not me. But yeah, it's been hard to watch. Mab wants to know, Tyler, do you think the Braves decline Charlie Morton's $20 million option for next year? I think they cut bait. He isn't worth that money anymore. We have to pay a shortstop next season too. No room for Morton. I wouldn't say no room for Morton. I wouldn't say that. And you're going to look at me like I'm crazy, but $20 million is probably a little high, but if that's a club option, they don't necessarily have to take it. And if they don't take it, okay, what's the next step, right? Re-sign him to a new deal. I don't care if you pay him $1 million, right? But that being said, you know, there's $20 million guaranteed on his current contract. It's a 1-year deal. There is an option for 2023, and I believe it is a club option. But that being said, you know, maybe you just don't pick up the option and you tell Charlie, look, if you want to come back, here's $5 million, right? As opposed to 20, because Charlie, you know, yeah, this year started out rough, but he's turned out okay. You know, I think if he wants another year, he could, and whether it be with Atlanta or not, but, you know, we'll see. Yep. Matthew says, hey, Tyler, why does AA spend so much on the bullpen? Some very good relief pitchers are cheap, but he spent $10 million on McHugh. McHugh was very good last year. $16 million on Jansen. Okay, so it's 16, not 18, but $16 million on Jansen. 40 on Will Smith, and now 50 on Iglesias. And I'm going to be, well, let's be real. Bullpen pieces are hard to come by, especially consistent ones. Will Smith at the time, everybody, you know, criticizes a move later. It's easy to do. I find myself doing that. But Will Smith at the time was a great pickup. It was, you know, everybody looked at $40 million and was like, okay, all right, you know. You're looking back at it now and you're like, well, you know, we way overpaid for that. And I'm sitting here thinking, you know, how much is a World Series worth to you? Right? Because if you're telling me if I'm the Braves and I spent $40 million on a guy who had a 0 ERA throughout the entire postseason, pitched the end of the NLDS, the end of NLCS, and the end of the World Series, I'm looking at that $40 million, which probably turned into triple that with the World Series win, and I'm going, okay, yeah, that was pretty profitable as a business. And then I'm looking at McHugh. I'm looking at a guy who can cover multiple innings. $10 million is really, you know, it's a heavy duty price, but it's not like anything on, you know, some of these other guys that are getting paid out in LA. I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay. And then $16 million on Jansen, who's been not, you know, the best reliever of the year, but he's been solid for the most part. And $50 million on Iglesias. I mean, you got to remember that's spread across 3 years. So you're really talking about 14. With Smith, you're really talking more like 17, 18 a year. You know, I'm looking at it and I'm going, you know, those aren't bad moves, right? You don't want to lock up everybody to long-term deals, but, you know, I look at Iglesias, I see an arm that I think could be really good. I look at Will Smith, who over 3 years pitched in, I believe, 3 different postseasons and won a World Series in that time. So, you know, I'm looking at it and I'm going, you know, it really isn't that bad. And when you think about how much money the Braves turned a profit based off each and every one of those guys you just mentioned, with the exception of Iglesias because he's new, and of course McHugh because he's only been around this year. But when you look at Will Smith specifically, and you look at how much profit has been made because of games Will Smith pitched in, just think about that from a business standpoint. I think it makes a profit. Now, I'm not saying was it the best move ever? No, absolutely not. But Will Smith at the right time clutched up. Say what you want about the guy. He did clutch up, and I think we can all appreciate him for that. Now, in terms of the general manager position, there's very few things I question AA on when it comes to his checkbook, and Bullpen is one of those. You know, I think AA makes decisions that he feels are best for the Braves. I'm not saying they're going to pan out to be great. I'm not saying that at all. I don't think all of them do. But you can't judge a move based on how they went, right? You can't judge a move 3 years into the future when you make them, right? You take your best guess. Every move that he has made sense. I'm not saying they turned out great. I'm not saying we expected them to turn out great, right? I mentioned the other day, you know, we were talking about 2020, you know, the Tommy Malone and Robbie Erlin. I mentioned those guys the other day because, you know, look, everybody hated those moves at the time. I was excited about him because it was something with starting pitching, because the starting pitching market was just not there. You know, AA tried to do something. I don't even remember who he traded for those guys. Hopefully nobody that turns out to be any good. But they were only around for a couple of weeks at most because they didn't perform. And, you know, and I look at that year 2020, And we had a legit shot to win a World Series that year. If we got past the Dodgers, my money's on the Braves in that series. So I look at that and I go, I don't blame him because we needed starting pitching so desperately with Mike Soroka gone, and I look at the bullpen and I go, we do need something. I mean, we did need a right-handed pitcher. We did need something, and nothing was out there that was, I assume nothing was out there that was really resonating. I doubt we wanted to give Tucker Davidson up, necessarily. So I think, you're a product of what the market is. So if the market is empty and you need something desperately, you're going to give up something. You may overpay a bit, but if it turns out to be a winning choice, then, you're a genius, right? It all, figures itself out. But good question. Josh Hutchins says the Braves have a very home run or bust offense. I completely agree. Richard Davis says, here comes the so-called Braves fans ready to jump off the bandwagon. No. I hope you're not talking about me. That is not me at all. But there are things that I think could be a lot better, and the Braves offense is one of those. So, you can call it a bandwagon, but it's not. It's me watching the team going, yep, there's problems. And I think when you lose 4 out of 5 games to the team you're chasing, there's problems. But yeah, they're probably out there, those bandwagoners. Blake says the 2019 Braves days of comebacks are long gone. Well, maybe they'll make a resurgence at the end of the year, but I know what you're talking about, right? Like the Braves always give you a finish. You remember that line they used to always say? That has not felt like what we've been watching. It hasn't felt like what we've been watching at all. And those were the Nick Markakis, those were those days, right, where you had a good at-bat in the lineup. And I didn't say a good bat. I said a good at-bat. Nick Markakis had a good bat on him, sure, but he always battled. And that's something we're missing desperately. You look at the Mets lineup, you got Jeff McNeil, Nimmo, Starling Marte. Those guys can give you good at-bats. And I look at our lineup, and there's some guys in there that will. Being down Ozzie Albies is a hit. But even with Ozzie, it's very home run or strikeout. And it just is. That's how the lineup is built. That's how the offense for the Braves is built right now. And, that's frankly how the game of baseball is built right now. But when you have a consistent offense, they look like the Mets. They just do. And yeah, there were some lucky hits, but it's been really hard to watch, for sure. Map says Ozuna's problems is he looks like he is trying to hit a home run on every single swing, because he is. Even if there is a runner on second in a tie game, he only cares about the home run. The win is more important. But you got to understand, from Ozuna's standpoint, for one, he gets paid to hit homers, but for two, and as much as I agree with you, that's how his swing is. I mean, that's what his swing is. And until he makes a mechanical or mental change, it's not going to change. I don't think it's he doesn't care about winning the game. I don't think it's that at all. I think that's his mentality at the plate is to hit a home run. I don't think it's him going up there going, well, I hope I hit a homer right now because that's the only way we're going to win the game. No, I think he legitimately just tries to hit the ball as hard as he possibly can instead of battling and hitting it the other way. When was the last time you saw Marcell Ozuna hit a ball the other way? Just think about that for a second. When was the last time? It's been a minute. Blair McBride says, the Braves were so poor that series that they unfortunately can kiss goodbye winning the division. I don't think so. I don't. And I'll tell you why. Because I look at, August. I see some winnable games there. And sure, the Mets are beating up on the Reds right now. Congrats. But I see some winnable series here. And if they can sweep the Red Sox in a 2-game series, if they can sweep the Marlins, they go into 4 games with the Mets. And if they can get 3 out of 4 there, you're right back in the conversation. And that's wishful thinking. But then you go. There is a chance. You have 7 games total with the Mets left in the year. You finish off September with 1 game, then you head into October with 2 more. So you have 7 games. I think it can be done. 6.5 games back. They were much further back last year at this time. It can be done, but they got to make changes. They got to do something to change it. And it just is what it is. As Richard Davis says in the chat, the Braves got hot at the right time last year. They got to get hot now. now's the time for them to get hot. Now is the time. 52 games left, 6.5 games back. If they're going to do it, now's the time. They just had the lowest of lows. They got to go on their stretch. Hopefully now's the time. Let me see. A lot of you guys being active in the chat. Thank you so much for that. Make sure to like the video if you can for me. That always helps. Trying to figure out where I am at. A lot of you guys are being active tonight. I got a lot to get through. All right. Let's see. All right, Blair McBride says the wild card is their way in. Then they just have to play like last year's playoffs where they were just so hot it doesn't matter who they're playing. I mentioned the other day, not on camera, but just, in a conversation, that I think it would be fairly hilarious is if we made it to the wild card, won that series, and then faced the Mets in the NLCS and beat them. Yes, that would be great, but if you want to set yourself up for success, you don't want to have to deal with a wild card. If they could get hot like they did last year, I agree with you, but again, that's wishful thinking. I think we're headed to a postseason no matter what, but what postseason do you want to have? Yeah. Matthew Brenningham says, Tyler, if the Braves have that much money to add Iglesias, they should have enough to replace Swanson with Turner, Correa, and Bogarts next year. Those are more important additions. I would question that, Matt, because, yeah, they do have money. Mark Bowman tweeted it the other day. They're planning on re-signing as many of them as they can in the next few years. Swanson, Fried, as many as those key players as they can get. You don't want to lock up everybody. You want to have some flexibility. But I don't think replacing Swanson with any of those guys is going to have any, if there's one leader on the team right now, it's Dansby. Now, it's a contract year. We've all seen contracts year come and go before. Jeff Blauser comes to mind. But at the end of the day, it's not, Dansby as a human being, as a teammate, is a leader. And I do think there is an importance to that. Now, how much they value it is up to them. But I would question replacing him. I don't want, to be honest with you, I don't want Correa on the team. Would I take Trey Turner in a hot second? But Dansby, to me, I think fits the Braves. It fits their mindset. It fits their financials. That's where I'm at with it. But yes, they do have money. That doesn't mean they want to go spend all their money. I don't think they wanted to go trade all their prospects to get Matt Olson, to tell you the truth, but they did it because they felt like they had to. So we'll see, but we'll see. Jake Hobby says, Braves sent Ian down, but not really. He's still on taxi squad. That's right. I believe he'll have one more start this week while on the taxi squad and then be sent down. I believe that's the way they're planning on going with it. Jorge says, what's up, Tyler? What's up? What a painful series. I thought DeGrom was going to pitch a perfect game. Thank goodness he didn't. That would have been very disheartening. But yeah, hard to watch. Just hard to watch. Richard Davis says, Braves messed up by not getting Robertson, I think. For a number 26 prospect, everyone was pitching well. The big question is, can they continue? It's... We'll see. The Phillies are gaining ground too. Let's not forget about them. As much as I hate to say it, we really don't need to forget about them. Terrence Carolina Lett, you're a new guy. I'm sure of it. Appreciate you tuning in. I really do. You say Braves are letting strikes go by and swing at junk. The ump wasn't helping either. Yeah, CB Buckner's a tough one. He's a tough nut to crack for sure. Richard Davis says, why sign Turner for $100 million more than Dansby? Agreed. Jorge says, which philosophy do you think is better for winning? Pull the ball in play or hitting for the long ball, or put the ball in play, I apologize. Put the ball in play or hitting for the long ball and extra base hits. Well, it's hard to say because I would love to say put the ball in play because of the narrative of what I just read off to you. But the way the game is moving, everybody is doing the opposite. They're going for the long ball and extra base hits, which look can add up. They can win you ball games, but when you're in tough games, right? And these games were tough games. What do you want to do when the runner's on second base? How many leadoff singles and doubles did we see that didn't move any further in that series. And it's because everybody's going for the long ball. They're going for the 3-run homer and not to get the guy home, right? So, personally, my philosophy would be put the ball in play, but I understand why others are for hitting the long ball. I get it. The Yankees have managed to win a ton this year because of it. So, it's hard to say. Matthew says other great players are available too. Why waste over $14.5 million a year in Iglesias when it could help you sign a real star like Judge? What great players are available? Because I look at that trade deadline and I picked out 4 or 5 guys that all moved. Noah Syndergaard was probably an attraction to the Braves because we ended up getting a starter later, and we traded with the Yankees. And I believe Toronto was in on him. The Red Sox were in on him. So the price was probably too high. And then AA probably said, okay, what reliever can you give me? That's how negotiations work there. But given that, I look at it and I say, well, Anthony Bass traded to the Blue Jays. They wanted somebody too. David Robertson went to the Phillies. Did you really want to get into a bidding war with the Phillies? No. So I just, there was options out there, sure. We talked about them a lot in the trade deadline. I made a lot of attempts to get, somebody, but I look at what the Braves bullpen was supposed to be this year, and there is a need. You're down Luke Jackson. You're still down Kirby Yates. Will Smith is, of course, not. He didn't perform to expectations. He's gone. Kenley's been out a lot. I think there's some desperation there for AA. I'm not saying that it's exactly like panic mode. I don't think that at all. I think that would be ignorant to say. But I do think that there was some, conversations about, okay, what happens if we can't get so-and-so, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. So when AA, is communicating with these teams, it's not always about, can I get the best player? It's, can I get a player that can fill the need? And we did that. And we did it for multiple years. If you don't think that AA has a plan going forward with Iglesias, I think that that's what it is. And in terms of signing Aaron Judge, I think that you are so wishful thinking that you're kind of blinding yourself, because Aaron Judge is going to want money. He already, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he's already said he's not signing with the Yankees on a hometown discount. That's already out there. The dude's going to want money. He's on a contract year. He's having one of the best years of his career. He's going to want money. Is he a real star? Yes. Do we need him? No. And I'll tell you why. Where do you want to put him? If you want to put him in DH, maybe, but you got Marcell Ozuna. Where are you going to put him? If you put him in the outfield, who you getting rid of? Because Rosario, yeah, you can replace him, but do you really want to? Michael Harris is doing great in center field, and you're not paying him hardly a dime. Ronald Acuna is on a very, friendly deal. So I look at it and I go, I don't think we need Aaron Judge. To be honest with you, Matthew, that hasn't even crossed my mind to go get Aaron Judge. And it's just so far out there for me. I just don't think so. Vision Music Works says, this weekend just made me sad. Me too. Do you think we could use a new pitching coach? May not make a difference, but just a thought. I don't particularly love to go calling for jobs. I don't. And to be honest with you, a big part of that is because a lot of how baseball works, to the fans, it's if we're struggling with pitching, it's the pitch coach's fault, right? If we're struggling with hitting, it's the hitting coach. If the catchers are bad, it's Sal Fasano's fault, whatever the case may be. But when I look at it, I don't look at it like that, because I have friends in the organization. I know how stuff kind of works. And a lot of that comes from the top. They have analytical guys. They have sabermetric guys. They have all that stuff, and they put it all together, and they, yes, there's a pitching coach that's there day to day, but it's not necessarily the only resource for those pitchers. So I look at it, I don't know if pitching coach is really where I would go with that, especially after last year. I mean, I don't think a coaching change is warranted after you win a World Series the year prior. Not to say it's, unfathomable, but it has happened before. But I just don't think that's where you want to go. I don't think Kevin Seitzer is responsible for the offensive problems we keep talking about. I think it's a mindset issue. But, we'll see. You also say we've had good pitchers, but I'm old school. I miss starters going long innings and bullpen pitchers that can come in and get 3 up, 3 down more often than not. Sure, that's what everybody would love. We got a few of those. We got a few starters that can go long. Kyle Wright's done it. Max Fried has done it. Charlie Morton can do it. But at the end of the day, it's not, how do I put this? I think they can. It's just, when you go up against the Mets, who have a future Hall of Famer in Max Scherzer, one of the greatest pitchers in recent memory in Jacob deGrom, and a strong supporting cast, it's just tough. It's not about, the Braves are bad, because let's be real, they're not. They're in second place in the division. They're not bad. They're just, I think they're a little overmatched with that pitching. I really do. And it's nothing you can really do about it, but for right now, it's tough. Richard Davis says, if you watch the Braves hitter when things are going good, they go up to the plate swinging. When they aren't, they watch pitches go by a lot. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough because, you got to assume they have a hitters meeting every day. You got to assume there's a mindset and a plan going into every game, but I agree with you. I don't really know what the issue is, but it is tough. Guys, do me a favor, if you will, hit the like button for me. Get this out there to all of Braves country. Really helps me out a lot, and I do appreciate it. Anthony Hayes says, all right, what do you think? The Braves spent too much money on Marcell Ozuna's contract. Do I think that? Yes, I do. That being said, was it a bad move by AA? No. I don't think so at the time. Not after 2020. You're talking about probably the best hitter in that year. Not the MVP, but was, close to getting the Triple Crown in a 60-game season. What does that mean to you? I don't know. But, at the time, it meant a lot to Braves fans. And after you didn't lock up Donaldson the year before, I think there was a mentality there that, all right, we got to lock up somebody. This guy just gave us one heck of a year. We don't want to play against him. We need to lock him up, and they locked him up for 4 years. One of those years was spent, sidelined, to say the least, and then this year has been spent kind of mediocre. So, did they overpay? Yes. Did they know they were going to overpay? No. Could you have seen it coming? No. But, we're stuck with it at this point, unless we can get somebody else to take him. That being said, I tend to operate off the mentality that this is the guy we have, and this is where we're going to go with it. I have explored other theories. At the beginning of the year, I gave you a theory of how the Braves could go get Jorge Soler to be the DH. If you want to watch that video, it's somewhere on the channel. But, I try to operate on the mentality of this is who we got, this is how we need to win, and this is who we got to win with. How can we do it? That being said, yes, I think they overpaid. But, it ain't my checkbook. Jorge says, Braves have a brutal week coming up. 4 games against the Mets and 3 against the Astros. No doubt. This is a very big week for the Braves. Without a doubt. You got a World Series matchup, a rematch with the Astros, which is never easy. You got 4 games with the Mets, which is probably, after this week, I would say even harder. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough week. But, the Braves, I think there's a different mindset in that clubhouse now. Whether or not that translates to the field, we'll have to wait and see. But, they obviously struggled this week, and we'll be here for when they do well. LD says, I really hope Albies figures it out when he comes back because he was very disappointing this year. Disappointing is a strong word for Ozzie. I wouldn't say disappointing. I thought he was just getting into the groove a little bit. You guys, you got to remember, it's 162 games. We're 2/3 through it now, pretty much. Yeah, 2/3 through it. But it's 162 games. Ozzie's been gone since, May? That's very early on, to call it disappointing. It was, I would say it's subpar, but I wouldn't say it's like, I wouldn't say it was Marcell Ozuna level struggling. I think it was just getting into gear more for him. Hopefully he'll be right on, on the best gear he can be. But, yeah, I would agree that it was a little bit not what we expect after a World Series run like we had, but I wouldn't say disappointing. I'd much rather have him in the lineup than what we have currently. But, we'll see. Rick Prada, everybody asked me this. Dansby Swanson or Trey Turner for next year? Personally, I say Dansby because I think he's more affordable. I think it makes more sense, and I think he's the leader of the team. If I'm building a team from scratch, I'd pick Trey Turner. But I'm not building a team from scratch. I'm building a team with prerequisites. Is the best way I can say it. Jose says, I would love to see Anderson being next year's right in the sense that he found new life after trying stuff in the minors. I hope it doesn't take that long, Jose. I really hope it doesn't take that long, because if it does take that long, you're counting out this year at that point. I think Ian is going to find himself before that happens. I hope so, at least. Kyle Wright made a pretty, influential appearance in the World Series. Don't forget. So he very well could figure it out before that time. Let's see, William. Hey, thanks, William, for tuning in. Appreciate it. It says Braves payroll will go up to $200 million next year. Yeah, that's why I'm not worried about it. I'm really just not. We'll see. Blair McBride says, I will always be grateful for Will Smith for how great he was in helping us win a World Series, but it was time to say goodbye. I agree. I completely agree with you. But, a lot of people tend to look back at the Will Smith years and go, well, we paid him $40 million for 3 years. So, we way overpaid for that. I just can't agree with that. Do I agree it was time? Yes. Do I agree that we overpaid? Not necessarily. I think, maybe a little, but not as much as people make it out to be. That's kind of the way I feel about it. You guys are very active in the chat. Yasuki Knight says the Braves will be fine if they handle this the right way. Yeah, they got to come in with the right attitude. They got to come in and say, all right, you beat us last time. Let's see you beat us on our turf, right? That's the attitude they got to have. And Braves fans need to go show up to those games. I'm sure you will. Blake says there was Lance Lynn out there, but the Rangers wanted Pache, Waters, and Shoemake at that time. And look at him now. We might have dodged a bullet. Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's all hindsight. A lot of people question moves with hindsight. And it's not fair to the guys making those decisions, because okay, simplest as we can make it. If you're playing rock, paper, scissors, right, and you have the ability to know what the guy did before he did it, then, what kind of advantage is that? A lot of people treat general managers the same way, and they treat Alex Anthopoulos the same way, and going, you paid this dude $40 million, and he didn't do jack squat, right? So that's the way people go about it. That's all hindsight. You can't look at it like that. You have to put yourself in the shoes of the general manager at that time. At the time, we were really needing a bullpen piece, and we got it. And, a lot of people didn't like it. But Will Smith, you're talking about a guy who, when he was signed, was one of the best relievers in the game, came to the Braves, struggled early on. 2020 came around. He got COVID, suffered through half the season, came in, tried his best, didn't perform well because, again, he had COVID. He was out for half the season. Comes in 2021, has a great year, finishes the year phenomenally, had a pretty good regular season, but a great finale. And then, 3 months with the Braves in 2022, and it's, that dude was terrible. It's like, well, let's slow down. Like, let's just slow down for a second. And then they want to get on Alex Anthopoulos, and I don't understand it. Chewy's Firewood wants to know what is the latest on Soroka. As far as I know, he's on his way back. That's all we can really go with. But I don't know that it's necessarily, he's not far away, is what I would say. But that's all I can really do. Blake, thank you, Blake. I appreciate you. All right. Sorry, guys. We got some trash in the chat, apparently. Sorry about that. Blake says, Markakis, McCann, Joyce, and Donaldson, they all grinded. Charlie and Ozzie had great offensive years, too. Yeah, that's, those are the years that everybody wants to forget, right? 2019 was a fun year. It ended on a sour note, but it was a fun year. Thanks, Sydney. Appreciate you tuning in. Maverick says, I don't know where that's going. Let me see. Corey Carter says the Mets have dominated us head-to-head. That's where the lead comes from. Yeah, that's where it comes from, and it stinks that that's where it is. But they beat us, 4 out of these past 5, and they really beat up on us head to head. I agree with you. Those 6.5 games come quick winning head to head. But just remember how quick the Braves came back earlier this year, back in June, right? When that happened, everybody talked about it. So hopefully, that would be the case later in the season as well. But we can only hope at this point. Corey Carter says, if Albies can't shorten that leg kick, he'll never be a consistent hitter. I think if he just stopped being a switch hitter, he would be a consistent hitter, honestly. But we'll have to wait on that. Wilmer says, hey, Tyler, good to see you. Good to see you, too. It's a shame you got to go to bed for work. I hope you will watch it back tomorrow. I appreciate it. Nolan Miller chimes in. Nolan apparently likes to steal people's Planet Fitness memberships. Can the Braves win the wild card? This is also the best show on YouTube for Braves baseball. Thank you, Nolan. Yeah, I think the Braves can win the wild card. I think they're definitely set up to at least go to the wild card. Hopefully they'll go to they'll get a bye and face someone in the NLCS. But can they win the wild card? Yeah, I think so. The wild card is such a toss-up. I mean, it's such a flip of a coin because it's 3 games and the 3 pitchers face face the other 3 best pitchers. So, it's tough. But, yeah, do I think they can? Yes. I don't know who they'll be playing in it just yet, but yes, I do. Cletus and the boys, will our top picks in the draft play in the minors this year? I'm not sure. I'm not sure where their path is just yet. I'm not sure that they know where their path is just yet. But we'll have to see on that. But if you want to get to know one of the draft picks, and I promote this all the time because I absolutely love this interview, go check this out. This is an interview with Cole Phillips. It's on the channel right now. Once you get done watching me tonight, go check out this interview with Cole Phillips. If you haven't already, I'm sure most of you have. This kid is going to be lights out for the Braves one day. Future starting pitcher. He's already battled Tommy John. He's recovering from it right now. 6'3", can throw 100 miles an hour, and he's only 19 years old. He's got a great head on his shoulders, and I think you'll be a fan of him if you watch this interview. So go check that out. Again, Cole Phillips, one of my new favorite Braves. Jake Hobby, you bring up a good point. I already saw it. Also saw Cubs said Hayward won't play for them anymore, but he will stay with team because he's a great clubhouse guy. That's exactly who Jason Hayward is. Yeah, I don't think that's, it's Braves news because it's a former Brave, but I don't think it's a future Brave. I just don't. He could have a Guillermo Heredia type role, but I just don't think so. Let's see. Do we want to go the Jacob Webb route? I wouldn't be against it. Jacob Webb's had, off and on times. I wouldn't say he's been bad. He has been bad, but he's also been very good at times. So it's tough to really tell, but I wouldn't be necessarily against Jacob Webb. Like, I think a lot of people, remember players having bad stretches. Like, oh, we got this guy again, like Huascar Ynoa, right? Everybody remembers Huascar Ynoa was good, and then all of a sudden he wasn't good. And, that's all they remember, and I think that's the case with Jacob Webb. Jacob Webb was actually very good. I believe in, 2020. He was lights out. But, I think hitting Kevin Millar in the face was a big one. But, I think that sort of is in his head, or was in his head. But, yeah, I wouldn't be against Jacob Webb necessarily. I mean, he is a depth guy. The problem is with Jacob Webb is that there's not really a place in the pen for him. It's, I don't even know if there's a place in the starting rotation for him. It's pretty locked up at this point. Maybe next year, but not this one. Jeff Berry says, Judge to the Giants. Maybe. He might want to try his luck in the NL. Possibly. I think he's going to go to the highest bidder, though. Richard Davis says $5 million a year for Dansby is an insult. I do see him between 15 and 18 for 5 to 6 years. If you can get him for 10 to 12 for 5 years, that's what I would be comfortable with the most. But again, I don't really care because it's not my money. That's kind of where my head is when it comes to, people getting paid. I want you to get paid as much as you can get paid. It's not your fault for getting paid too much, ever. It's the guy who chose to pay you. So with that said, I look at Dansby and I go, okay, how much would I pay Dansby if I had all this money? I look at him and I see a 12 to 14 year, or really I see 12 to 13 for 5 years. And a lot of people are going to go, 12? That's what Eddie Rosario is making. Yes, but it's also a lot less guaranteed because Eddie Rosario is only signed for 2 years. And I think he's making 18 over 2 years. But he's not making 12 a year. You know, it was comparable to Eddie Rosario, because I've said that before. And, you know, a lot of people don't necessarily like that, but I look at it and I say, look, you know, you're talking about $12 million over 5 years. That's $60 million. You know, and if you want to be a Brave, be a Brave, like Chipper said, you know, when it came to Freddie Freeman. So that's kind of where I'm at. I do think $5 million is a bit too low. But if you can get Dansby locked up for $12 million, and you know, Richard's probably closer than I am of what it's gonna be, but if you could get him for 12, that would be awesome. But 15 to 18 is probably a lot more like it, honestly, because I look at what they did with Riley, and I want to say he's making about $20 million a year, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, he's making about $21.2 million a year across 10 years. Dansby's not going to get this deal. Riley's a lot younger. But I do think, you know, $5 million is a little too low. I think 15 to 18 is probably where it'll end up. But if you could get him for 12, that would be ideal, based on what we've seen out of the Riley deal. Blake says Judge has great defense too, so the DH doesn't make sense. But the only way we could get him would be a Rodon or Correa type deal this offseason with opt-outs galore. Judge isn't happening. I just don't see it happening. In terms of Correa, I've heard that before. I don't really see the appeal. I know he's a great player, don't get me wrong. I just don't really understand why everybody's so just, you know, committed to making a deal. Like, why lose your shortstop that you've had, frankly, since, you know, 2015, 2016, and a guy that we've seen develop and get better every year for a guy who, I'll just say it, was on the Astros in 2017, has been a great player, sure, but hasn't been, you know, your team player. You know, I just don't understand it. Again, I'm not saying he's a bad player, because he's not, but I just question it. I really do. Let me see. Chuck Black joins the chat. He says, recent series with the Mets, with the exception of the 13-1 win, all hitters continually offered at uncompetitive pitches. Agreed. All Braves pitchers have a bad habit of throwing too many uncompetitive pitches. I wouldn't say all Braves pitchers, but I get where you're at. Along with so many hit batters and walks makes their pitch count go through the roof. Strider, case in point, Strider will at some point have to learn how to pitch and not to just throw hard. Well, you know, at the beginning of the season, I hope I still have this graphic. At the beginning of the season, I showed you this. And I'm going to show you kind of where I was at with Strider becoming a starter. We talked about this a good bit. Hopefully I still have that. It might not. Well, maybe I do. Hang on a second. But I showed you this graphic because, you know, it was prevalent to the conversation, in my opinion, because Strider was getting a lot of attention, because, you know, the dude was throwing, you know, just crazy velocity, and he was doing very well in the pen, so he got a lot of attention. All right, I don't have it, but it was essentially he's a two-pitch pitcher, right? And I showed you that, and I showed you the map of it, but he was a two-pitch pitcher, and I question, you know, if I'm facing off against a really good team, what happens? Might have just seen it with the Mets. I hope that it's a one-time thing, but for right now, it's concerning. And, you know, that might mean he finds himself in the pen soon. And when I say soon, that's relative, because I think Strider's going to probably pitch the remainder of the regular season and start a rotation. But once you get to the postseason, especially if it's a wild card series, once you get there, Strider's a bullpen piece. I don't care who we got in the rotation. That's a bullpen piece. He can give you 2 innings. He can give you 3 if need be. That dude is going to be a bullpen piece. Nothing wrong with it. Industry Streetwear tunes in, says Ozzy can steal and field. We need him back. He'll be back one day or another, but he will be back. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Thanks for the mods, guys. I really do appreciate it. It's hard for me to watch it, so I do appreciate you, without a doubt. If you will, do me a favor and like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay tuned with what's going on here at On Deck, and, of course, with your Atlanta Braves. That really would help me a lot. Richard Davis says he did not like Strider's comments on the pitch count. Kind of smart, short remark. Yes, they are worried about pitch count. Actually, I'm going to defend him here because I think this is a organization-wide opinion, because Anthopoulos, if you were watching a few weeks ago, came out and said that They aren't concerned about pitch count. And yes, they're concerned about pitch count in one game, but they're not concerned about pitch count across a season. They're not concerned with that. Now, if there comes a point where it's ridiculous, but they're not one of these teams that says, all right, you're a rookie, you throw 102, you're done. Right? It's a training curve. And to be honest with you, that's something that I believe has been handed down from my buddy Leo Mazzoni. That is a mindset that he had was, pitchers can throw way more pitches than what they're throwing these days. They're stronger than they used to be, and yet they throw 200 less pitches, sometimes a game. So yeah, I think that is something that he has obviously talked about. Strider's also a little bit more blunt than I think a lot of other rookies tend to be. To be honest with you, I know a lot of people didn't like what he said in relation to the umpiring and things, but whoever likes it when somebody complains about the umpires? And to be honest with you, if there was ever a week to complain about him, this was it. And he was directly affected, so I understood it. But I get where you're at with it as well. Blake says the Angels are potentially thinking about DFAing Jesse Chavez. What would that mean for us? I think it would mean Jesse Chavez could potentially get a 1-year minor league deal, possibly. Not guaranteed, but possibly. Stupid on the Angels' part because that's a dude that throws strikes when they don't have a lot of people that do. But their choice. Let me see. Blake says, I think the way Ozzie got injured is actually going to help him change his mechanics. Maybe a blessing in disguise. Maybe, but, I don't tend to look at things like that. I tend to look at things, you got to handle it in that moment. I get what you're saying, don't get me wrong, but I hope he just comes back healthy. I don't necessarily need him to change anything mechanically. Industry Streetwear says Cole is a beast. He's talking about Cole Phillips. Go check out that interview. One more shameless plug. Thank you for that. They also say the energy of this team really scares me this year. It's almost like since Freddie left the club, hasn't been the same, and hasn't had the same fire behind it. I can name several games they lost last year that you can clearly see them having fun trying to come back. This year seems like they aren't hitting dingers. Everyone gives up. I completely understand what you're saying. I completely understand what you're saying. I get it, and I agree with it. I'm not sure it's necessarily directly reflective of Freddie Freeman. Ozzie is gone. I mentioned that in the Acuna slump video. I thought that was a direct reflection of Ozzie being hurt. Was because Acuna struggling and not being himself and not having fun. We finally saw some of that in Game 2 where he came out for the curtain call and the Mets fans were booing him. We finally saw a taste of that, but it's I don't know. I know what you're saying, and to be honest with you, they were talking about 2019 earlier. That's what I remember about that team, was that it fought back, and this team just hasn't. There hasn't been very many games that are come behind games. Last year I remember Contreras crossing the plate late in a walk-off, right? I remember that. I remember, obviously, the Fried walk-off. There were those moments, and now it's just kind of bleak. But hopefully, there's still time in this season. Corey Carter says Dansby is not signing for less than $21 million. I would pay him as much as $23 on a shorter year deal. He bet on himself and won. Sure. I think at this point, especially since he hasn't re-signed yet, and we're talking about pending free agency at some point. Yeah, you're right. But we'll just have to wait and see. Guys, do me a favor and like the video. I really do appreciate all the likes and the super chats and everything else. I give my time for you, and I love having the conversation, but a like does help me do it. So I do appreciate it. Jeff Barry says, I think the Braves need to get into the postseason mindset where they have no choice but to win. They try to hit too many home runs, too many errors in the field, and wasting ABs. Yeah, we talked about that, in the early part of the show where, in that 5-game span versus the Mets, they have 57 strikeouts. That's 2 games plus 3 at-bats, plus 3 outs, rather, I believe. Yeah, plus 3 outs worth of strikeouts. So 2 games plus out of 5 were strikeouts. Mathematically speaking, that's not going to be successful. So yeah, I completely agree. They're wasting at bats. Mike Jones says, Big Redmond. Who you calling big? I ain't big. I'm little. Dan's is the leader of the Braves and needs to stay, in my opinion. I agree with you. I was hoping he'd be signed before the trade deadline, but it hasn't happened yet. So hopefully that changes. Hopefully he gets signed in the offseason, whatever the case may be. I'd love to see Dansby back. I've interviewed Dansby. I like Dansby. I do think he's a leader, like you said, and I think he's going to be a fundamental part of this team going forward if we can get him back. Richard Davis says, if Chavez is designated for assignment, the Braves would pick him up. I think he was just the odd man out because the Braves needed a spot. Agreed. We'll see what happens with Jesse Chavez. Of course, if that happens, we'll be on it. And he will again. No, he won't. He's now the most traded player in baseball history. I don't know if you guys knew that. He is the most traded player in baseball history. He won't be traded again at that point. He won't add on to that record. But I'd love to get him back. Jesse was a fundamental part of last year. He was great this year. He throws strikes. I love what Ben Ingram said about him because he pitches like he's double parked outside the stadium. I thought that was great. But yeah, I'd love to get Jesse back, but that's pending if they DFA him. So I think that's the first I've heard of it. So we'll have to wait and see. Industry Streetwear says, I think Strider could be a great closer one day. I agree with you, but considering we have 3 or 4 closers on the team right now, I don't think it's necessarily needed right now. I think Strider in the postseason could be used in that role, but I think it would be more of a bring him out when you got 2 runners on type situation where you need an out. That's where he's really deadly, I think. Thank you, mods. I really do appreciate you guys getting in on that. Let's see. Vision Music Works says, we'll be at Truist for the Mets game on the 17th. Looking forward to starting a new long winning streak. Love your show, Tyler. Thank you, and thank you for the like that I know you gave me. On the 17th, let's see where that is. All right, that is on, looks like Wednesday. So yeah, have fun on Wednesday. Wish I could go, but I have to work. But yeah, have fun. Hopefully the Braves pull out a win for you. Maybe you'll be their good luck charm. Vision Music Works. Thank you for the comment. Thank you for going to the game. Jeff Berry says, yes, Strider is a specimen of a bullpen piece. Yeah, and I really think that, he could be used in any role you need him, especially in the postseason. That's what makes him so dangerous, is you just go to him whenever you feel is the best time. He's not necessarily got to be a 6th inning guy, 7th inning guy. It doesn't work like that. You pull him in that, especially with the DH rules now, you pull him in the end of the 6th with 2 runners on, he can get you out of it. Then you let him finish the 7th. That's the kind of pitcher he could be in the postseason, especially with the length he's been able to do this year, throwing what he throws. He's been phenomenal. Richard Davis, this is what you get with young pitchers, a good start and a bad start. Yeah, but one bad start out of, 10? I'll take it. I'll take it. Ian Anderson, I think, is more so that point, but Strider's been phenomenal this year. He's up for the Rookie of the Year candidate. I think he's been phenomenal. Guys, we're going to wrap it up here in just about 5 minutes. I have actually got another show I have to get on, so I'm sorry I'm going to have to wrap it up. Trust me, I hate to wrap up my show early, but I'm going to have to here in a minute because I got to record one with somebody else. I'm going to just jump to the bottom. If you got a question, super chat it. I'll answer as quick as I can. Chris Kaysen says the Braves in every game with the Mets made a comeback and put runs on the board. That is important to remember. Yes, the boys are trying, but I think the mood among the team was hard to bring back to the hyperactive mood like we're used to see them play. The Mets fans did excellent in holding them down mood-wise. Yeah, agreed. I do agree with you. The Mets fans were loud, and that's how the Mets are. Congrats. But we got to be that way. Truist Park has got to be that way. But yeah, it is important to remember that they did put runs on the board, but again, they got to do the little things too. We'll see. Corey Carter says, not a fan of the Smith-Odorizzi trade because it weakened the left side of the pen and brought in a guy who probably won't start a postseason game. Sure. But a lot of people wanted Smith gone. I don't think we needed a reliever necessarily anymore. I definitely think we needed length. I talked about that earlier. And I think we got an innings eater to some degree. Not exactly a starter, but and he won't start a postseason game, I don't believe. I do think the last game he pitched was an outlier of what he will be before coming in. I want to say, 3.75 ERA, 46 strikeouts on the year. This is a guy that's going to pitch to contact. Guys are going to score runs on him. You got to expect it. but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a bad move. I think you got somebody to eat some of Will's contract. You got Odorizzi who can give you length if you need it. Especially with Ian Anderson now going down, I think this is a regular season move. I don't think this is a postseason move. But he'll probably make an appearance at some point. Because, guys, here's the thing. Even if you get into a 7-game series with somebody, if you're down 4-0 or if you're up 4-0, you're going to want a guy to come in and just eat those innings. You don't want to waste your good guys necessarily, right? So that's kind of where I think they're at with it. And Will Smith, I think we've all agreed that Smith had served his time, and we found somebody for that would take his contract. And you got to think the Astros know just what Will Smith can do. But maybe the Braves saw something in Odorizzi that we didn't. Joseph Alvarez with the late super chat. Thank you. You get priority. The Braves are going to be fine. Just wait when we hit October. Do you ever think we can beat the Nats? Do you think we can beat... Oh, okay. I read it as Nats. Do you think we can beat the Mets in a 7-game playoff series? Yes, anything can happen in a 7-game series. Anything can happen. And when I say anything, I mean anything. And it's not necessarily... what one particular player can do. It's not necessarily anything like that, but anything can happen in that time. And you don't have to you don't have to really it's just it's hard to predict, right? Who in the world would have predicted what Rosario did last year, right? I mean, really, who had that as their pick, right? This guy right here, Eddie Rosario, was phenomenal last year in the postseason. Who could have predicted that? Not you, not me, not anyone else. This dude, when we made this trade, no one thought it was a big deal. But this guy was great last year. And, it's now it doesn't look like much right now as we sign him to a 2-year deal, and he struggled this year. But this is a kind of guy that can make a 7-game series turn into a very one-sided series for the Braves. And you never know who could shine in that time. I mean, Mark Lemke, anybody? So, yes, do I think we can? Yes. If Fried shows up, if Kyle Wright shows up, yes, I think we can. Do I think we will? Who the heck knows? That's for the future and time to decide. With that, guys, I'm going to have to wrap it up with that. Make sure you super chat. If you got a question, super chat it now. I'll answer it, but I got to go. We got to head out. I got to join Tom and Talk. They're in the chat tonight. Make sure to go hit them up, subscribe. But with that said, we do have more content coming out this week. The Braves, of course, will play the Red Sox tomorrow night. Of course, they're on here right now. They will play the Red Sox tomorrow night into Wednesday. I will likely, no promises, but I will likely do a live Thursday because they are off again. But again, no promises. And then, of course, they will go into Miami and straight into the Mets. We may do something on the 15th, possibly. No guarantees. But if there is an off day on this calendar, you can bet that we're going to be live here more than likely. So the 11th, the 25th, and the 29th, just look out. Keep your notifications on. And if you will do that now, I'd appreciate it because we're going to be notifying you pretty good bit, whether it be pre-recorded or me just live. And of course, we will let you know there. Tom Talk, by the way, I see a lot of you guys active in the chat asking about it. Tom Talk is a YouTube channel that is growing fast. They are worth checking out. I've been on there before. I'll be on there again, either live or pre-recorded. I'm not sure just yet, but I will be on there again tonight. So go check them out. I'm sure they'll really appreciate it. And of course, you can follow me here, and I would appreciate any follow on Instagram or Twitter. And I'm going to be hopping on with them here in just a few minutes. So stay tuned for that. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. Really helps me out a ton. You don't know how much it does. And I'll see you guys later. Thank you, guys. Thank you to Alvarez for hitting me up with the super chat. I appreciate it. Thank you to Jonathan Collins as well. It really does help me out a ton. Thank you for that, guys. We're going to head out. I'll see you next time right here at On Deck. I thought I was done, but then Jorge came in and super chatted. So I thought I'd pop back on real quick since I haven't torn anything down just yet. Jorge says, for those that are still here, I think Dansby wants to be a Brave. He just doesn't want to be low ball. Trey Turner and Carlos Correa will be too expensive for the Braves. I agree with you. I completely agree with you on the low ball thing. I think a fair deal would land Dansby. I think he'll take a hometown discount, given that it is a reasonable hometown discount. And I do think Trey Turner and Carlos Correa are too much to ask for. But if it happened, I think there would be a general excitement in Atlanta. With that said, again, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and don't forget, Jorge, I stayed up late for you. See you next time right here and on deck.